countries across the region. I am therefore pleased to see today's gathering of representatives of member countries, policymakers, United Nations organizations, and development practitioners today in one space to discuss these important issues of mainstreaming finance for climate action implementation. I have no doubt that the cohort of speakers on the panel will provide better insights and critical thoughts on some of the best ways to address one of the critical challenges of our world today, that is climate finance. With that, I thank you and wish you a very good session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President, and it is also our honor to invite our co-host, in fact, actually, from UNESCO, the United Nations Under-Secretary General and Executive Secretary of United Nations Economic and Social Commission for West Asia, Dr. Rola Dashti, to give your opening remarks.
Thank you, Saeed. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope I can beat the noise outside. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, droughts, floods, sea level rise, water scarcity, sandstorms, and desertification are affecting the livelihoods of 435 million individuals in the Arab region. What is common among all these events? All of them are climate change related. Friends and colleagues, it's our moral obligation to act, and act now. Not tomorrow, but now. Climate mainstreaming and climate finance are the keys to accelerating action towards our common goals. I propose three important aspects to consider. First, we need science-based assessments. With science-based assessments, our plans become informed, actionable, and investable. In this respect, ASQA's RICAR Regional Knowledge Hub provides climate data, regional climate projections, and vulnerability analysis for the Arab and Mashriq regions. And I would like to thank our partner SIDA for supporting this initiative. This knowledge can be used to prioritize policy interventions and provide a climate rationale for investments which the ICDB banks and other financing institutions require. Second, enhanced cooperation. Climate change is inherently transboundary, and regional cooperation on joint projects can unlock synergies and lead to mutual benefits. For example, there is a couple of examples of regional transboundary initiatives, but let me cite one of them. Lebanon and Jordan have joined forces to tackle common water issues. Their project, funded by Adaptation Fund, seeks to increase the resilience of disabled persons and host communities to climate change-related water security challenges. The third thing, which is very important, is climate finance. Effective climate actions need impactful climate finance. Current climate finance in the Arab region is extremely insufficient. Climate finance solidarity between the North and the South is very key. To forge partnership and accelerate climate finance mobilization, ASQA, in collaboration with the Egyptian COP27 presidency and the UN High-Level Climate Action Champions, convened the first Arab Regional Climate Finance Forum in September. And that forum have highlighted the various needs, climate finance needs for several countries. And for finance to be impactful, also we need three major issues. The first one, we need more climate finance committed. Over the past decades, Arab states received less than 7% of what would be required to implement the NDCs of 11 countries. Second, more grant-based, concessional and innovative climate finance is needed. Enough of debt finance, enough. 87% of climate financing received over the past 10 years in the Arab countries was in the form of debt-based instruments. I think the region is highly debted and enough to give them more debts in any form and shape. Innovative financial instruments such as ESCO's Climate SDG, Debt Swap, Donor Nexus Initiative can allow countries to access more finance without burdening them with more debt. The third important thing is we need to focus also on adaptation finance. The Arab region receives only 20% of its climate finance for adaptation. Much more has to be done to build the resilience of lives and livelihoods across the region in an integrated and inclusive manner. Before I conclude, let me commend ISDB for their $5 billion financing support to be allocated for member states to address climate challenges and make it more resilient. Departing from traditional silo-typed and ad hoc approaches to climate action is a must, and mainstreaming climate finance is a prerequisite, not only for the achievements of the SDGs, but also for the sustainability of the present generations and the prosperity of our future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rola. That was a typically feisty and an inspirational way to get us off the mark, and really your words on enough of debt financing and the paucity of resources that have been given to these regions and on adaptation items, they really resonate with us. This really promises to be a very, very strong panel. Now I'd like to take the opportunity to invite our panelists onto the stage, beginning with Her Excellency Dr. Nasreen Al-Tamimi. She's the chairwoman of Palestinian Environment Quality Authority from the State of Palestine. Dr. Tamimi, we are honored to have you here. If you could take the floor as well. Thank you. I'd also like to invite again Dr. Rola Dashti, if you are joining us, if your time allows, for as long as you possibly can. And we have received regrets from the Ministry of Jordan, but we're very also fortunate to have engineer Bilal Al-Shaqirin. He is the Director of Climate Change Directorate of Ministry of Environment of Jordan, if you can take your seat. And last but not the least, our very own from the Islamic Development Bank, Maib Ali Babekir, the Regional Hub Manager of Cairo. Thank you very much. So, Dr. Tamimi, first of all, thank you very much for coming all the way here and coming to the COP27. You heard a lot of statements and a lot of information passed around in different places. We've been hearing the World Leaders Summit going on for the last couple of days, and it all then comes down to some of the areas which the COP27 is supposed to be about. This is supposed to be about the COP for implementation, COP for ambitions and financing. Now, climate financing, particularly from the State of Palestine, what does it mean to you, and how do you think we can get to it? So if you switch off, it works.
Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for this introduction. I think first of all, before talking and explaining about and discussing issues related to climate finance, I would like to present a little bit the situation in Palestine, because you know the situation is Palestine. It's different than other countries, which we are not only affected by the climate change actually, but also we are affected by the occupation and colonization, which make the challenges of climate change and problems or negative effect of climate change more and more and more. Actually, you know that we are more than 60% of our land is already on area C. This means that this area C that we cannot, we don't have a control in this area C. So, for example, if we are going to talk about implementing any eco-friendly projects there, it is not allowed for us. We have to take a special permission from the occupied Israeli state. And for example, there's a lot of proposals, projects for energy, for renewable energy, but let's say that most of land that we can implement these projects in area C, but it's really very difficult to implement this. If we are talking also about the water situation in Palestine, and as you know that most of our resources, we have two problems actually, and these two problems are also affected by occupied Israel state. Actually, the water resources, either it's polluted, and this is polluted due to the sewer water from settlements, which is located in our land, in our area, and most of this sewage is polluted by industrial and hazardous chemicals. Therefore, the groundwater is polluted, water resources is polluted, and if there's any other source for water, we don't have, we cannot control these sources. Most of our water is controlled by the Israeli side. For example, even the Prime Minister today in his talk and in the round table discussion about water security, he mentioned that, for example, the Palestinians consume 70, almost, or even actually less than 70 liters per capita per day. However, the same in Israel, it's like 400 liters per capita per day. So what does it mean? If we are talking about climate change, if we are talking about resources, if we are talking about environment in general, we are not talking about only problems and challenges. No, we are talking about rights. And this is our rights. We should have our rights in our land, in our water, in our air even. So this is in general the situation in Palestine as a country under occupation. So now if we are talking about the climate change, actually, you know that Palestine was one of the first countries who prepared their NDC's implementation plans for several sectors. Let's say we have implementation, NDC's implementation plans in water sector, agriculture sector, in energy sector, and in health sector. But then we want money to implement this. And we are, as a Palestine, we didn't make anything to increase climate change, but actually we are affected by this climate change. So we need the finance to adapt to this climate change, and this is very difficult to get money and finance to implement our adaptation plans, you know, climate. Always talking about mitigation. Okay, what about countries like Palestine that we want to adapt and we want to implement the adaptation plans? How we get money? We only hear a lot of trillions of money, a lot of millions, but what is, and the sources, but how to get? And this is really, we need, I hope, by the end of COP27, during this kind of dialogue, that we can really find a way. And also, we should consider, in my opinion, we should consider another thing, that we are talking about risks. I mean, NGOs, for example, they will not implement or will join or finance projects related to adaptation. This is due to the risk, for example. So how we can solve this, how we can involve NGOs, how we can involve even insurance companies also, because so the main important points that we have really to figure out that how we can get finance for the to adapt of climate change, not only to mitigation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Really, I felt you painted such a vivid picture of the challenges that the state of Palestine has faced and the resilience it has shown despite those challenges to actually come up with those items. You not only talked about the adaptation requirements, but also really the climate justice elements for those things. And we, as the Islamic Development Bank, can only support and welcome some of those activities. I had in order to go to Dr. Rola Dashti, but would you allow me to go to Engineer Bilal and Sister May, and then I'll come back to you to give a vivid assessment about what all you were hearing. So without any further ado, I'd like to invite Engineer Bilal Al-Shaqirin, the Director of Climate Change Directorate, Ministry of Environment of Jordan. We're aware of Jordan's strategies and the way it has been adapting, and it's also coming up with some innovative climate financing instruments and mechanisms as such. How are you pursuing that with the challenges that you're facing, and what are the avenues which make you more optimistic about as you go forward? Engineer Bilal, the floor is yours.
Sorry for that. Thank you. Well, first of all, good evening for distinguished guests. I do apologize on behalf of His Excellency, the Minister of Environment. He had a sudden meeting, he couldn't come. So, about your question, sir. Well, the matter of climate change, in Jordan, has been said by Palestine, we are not an emitter. We are just been affected by climate change. Jordan doesn't have a share of emissions, more than 0.06 of the global stocktake. But we are dealing with climate change as if we were the responsible number one for climate change and for climate change affections. So, as been said also, the matter within the finance itself, finance has to have many different resources, the diversity of financial tools, the diversity of the investors and the multi-developing agencies who can help you to move on within that. In order to do so, we had first of all we had updated our NDCs last year. It was raised in an ambitious way to be 31% by 2030, and within that we've translated it into some action plans. Sorry. So we've created a priority list within, it was done but within the partnership with the NDC partnership. We had the most important 35 priority, and we did a cost benefit analysis for the same. We have the National Green Growth Action Plan, which has 86 projects from all 6 developing sectors in the country, and those also been used within our plan to raise the matter of climate responsive projects, climate response investment. Within that also we had the National Adaptation Plan, which has the measures of adaptation, and then I'm gonna talk to you about several matters. We are going for finance, the innovative finance. We are going within grants and loans for the government from the all over funds and the donor countries. We are going also within the leveraging the private sector within climate response project. By the way, we are starting a new project, a readiness project for the GCF for 5 countries in the region: Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon, Iraq and Oman. it will start, it will begin yani, hopefully in the upcoming year. It will have leveraging the role of private sector within climate response project. At the same time, it will use different tools than grants and loans, which can private sector use. We cannot use it as a government, like equity, like some yani, concessional loans, which could be implemented there much more better. So this is an issue, and the other issue, yani, differentiating the financial tools. We are doing with ESCO now, yani, some debt swap, and this debt swap has a very promising results, which will be give two most fruitful issues. It will give development in much of the needed sectors in the country, and at the same time it will give a climate sorry it will give a climate response measures. So this is done. And also lastly but not least, we are also now monitoring, tracking the public budget of the country, the budgetary at the country. What do we have for climate response project in all sectors, and we are raising that budget yearly, year by year. So I hope that I've
Sure.
answered your question.
No, you
If
you
there's
certainly gave
something
us some
missing-
very good practices for us to emulate in different regions. That was a very that was certainly very informative, and I suppose it's a very good segue to May, because I have a feeling she might talk about the same Green Climate Fund
Exactly.
grant programs as such.
Exactly.
But since we are, I mean, and since you were my predecessor in this position, so let me also try to turn up the heat a little bit, without making it too warm. We heard a very strong remarks from Dr. Rola Dashti. Enough of debt financing. Really, enough of debt financing in this region. And as multilateral development banks, what do we love to do? So how do we bring that innovation in climate financing to some areas, avenues that Engineer Bilal was also mentioning, and Her Excellency Al-Tamimi was pleading for, in the sense from climate justice perspective. You have all these countries within your kitty and your responsibilities as such. How do you go about trying to offer solutions? Over to you, May.
Thank you. Thank you very much. In fact, when I heard Dr. Rola saying her strong statement of enough of debts, I was like, oh my God, my role will be very difficult. And but again, we are here as the Islamic Development Bank and other MDBs to serve our member countries, and especially the Islamic Development Bank being the only South-South bank. We have also that part and soft part in our heart to our member countries, because as you know, almost 50% of our member countries are fragile or conflict-affected countries. So we need to look into different measures, innovative financing, in order to bring them to this climate change agenda, how to help them meet their commitments. So I was happy to hear from the State of Palestine about the NDC partnership, because we were partners also on that in the State of Palestine and also in Lebanon. And that was a different way of financing, not through debt, but through looking into the external resources that MDBs can tap on. And I think MDBs, by their nature, by their vision and expertise in the field, and their nature of like membership and business that we do, so we have the knowledge and technical know-how to how to access these funds. So we're talking about the GCF or CIF or others. So we have tried to do that through our interventions, and one that was the example of the NDC partnership, but also the example that he was just talking about. I was so happy to hear Jordan speaking about it and owning it, because the way we looked at it when we tried to mobilize resources that are grant resources to bring that leverage of the private sector, because we cannot do it all through governments. So that is also another way of thinking out of the box. The debt swap that like the Asian Development Bank is leading, and other also development partners and bilaterals doing. So debt swap for climate finance is also something that can be definitely explored by MDBs. As the Islamic Development Bank, we have also the technical cooperation program and the reverse linkage, which is a South-South cooperation modality that we are using. It's a grant-based also resources whereby we try to help the member countries to build their capacity in different areas, including climate change and how to access also climate finance. So we, with our little resources that are for grant based resources, we look into how we can utilize them to help our member countries. And for me, as Said was saying, I'm heading the regional hub in Cairo, which covers Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Sudan, Iraq. So all of the countries that have not been the ones who are emitters, but they're the ones who have been affected. And also they are the ones who are mostly indebted. So it requires thinking out of the box. So these are some examples of what we can do as MDBs. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, May. Yes, that was quite at least innovative in the sense you did not rely too much on debt, but you talked about debt swaps and concessional and blended financing opportunities. So Dr. Rola, you really jolted the panel into life with your opening, and we come back having made a full circle when it comes to the state of Palestine, when it came to some of the opportunities of innovation that Jordan was mentioning, and in terms of multilateral support that May was mentioning. Does that offer you some level of optimism and comfort that there are these solutions available? Or if not, because the scale of requirement is so vast, what other opportunities that may exist that we need to explore with a lot more conscience and determination to do so? How do you feel after you've heard all our esteemed panel to talk about these issues? So it's one of those weird ones. You have to switch it off to make it work.
Yes.
Okay.
That's how it is.
That's okay. Said, I'm by nature optimistic person.
Okay, great.
So, and when you see that crowd here at COP27, you have to be optimistic. I mean, the commitment is there, which is important. The understanding of the impact of on our livelihood in the region or at globally is very important, which gives you hope. But as you said, the scale of financing is so huge that we need to start the commitments. And I'm very pleased to know, and I appreciate and commend ISDB on starting to turn on the type of the financing, the quality of the financing into adaptation projects, which is extremely important. And as we heard from Palestine, Jordan, and the whole region, adaptation project financing is extremely important. This is the first part. Yes, we need investments. Engaging the private sector is another add-on by having the investments. So we need to expand and bring on the private sector, and hopefully next time in our sessions next year in COP28, we will have some of the private sector to be here as investors. So this will bring some financing to the climate needs that we need. On as May was saying, and I think it's very good also, we're seeing the MDBs and other organizations thinking of innovative financing mechanism outside the regular debt portion. And this has a momentum into it. And maybe we'll be discussing with May also how to move forward. On an example, as Bilal was saying, we have a portfolio of projects with on debt swap for Jordan, and to see how we can engage ISDB on the debt swap mechanism for it with the KPIs. It's addressing climate change, but it's also accelerating the SDGs that all globally we are committed in. The path is long, but I think we're taking the steps, and this is very important that the steps are being taken. And May mentioned something very important. You need also to build capabilities.
Yes.
You need to build capacities and capabilities within member states so that they can address the financial needs for MDBs or the financial requirements from MDBs or financial institutions, how to address so that you get some financing. The second part, which is also important, is the data, the information, the knowledge. So this is very important, not only capacity building, but also you need to have the data and knowledge. And this is where we will like, as we do have at ASQA, the RECON project, the climate center, which produces all the data, informative knowledge, so that these proposals for financing can become more, as I said in my speech, more marketable and more investable for the private sector, but also to NDPs. And we'll look into with May now how would we engage them in RECON as also providing data and information to the member state, so they become effective planning and effective mechanism of proposals and plans as we move forward. And also in addressing the climate change and setting the priorities. It's also because at the end of the day, financing is limited. You don't have unlimited finance. So you need to prioritize. And the way to prioritize, you need to see where is the vulnerable areas, where the vulnerable communities, and how to address it. And this could be helped, and this is where we at RECON is trying to support member states in, and support also the financing institutions to be aware where it is and how to target and become targeting financing to support the planet, but also to support the people as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Rola. I think this was this was an excellent way to sort of bring it all together. I do know that we have a very illustrious crowd actually with us. Just wondering if Your Excellency Tamimi, you wanted to react with anything, or should we can go to the question and answers. But if you had any opinions and remarks on what you were hearing right now, does that sort of offer you that level of hope for the state of Palestine, that there may be possibilities and avenues that we can explore and bridge and come to make something practical in the region or in the country as such as well? Yes.
Again, as I mentioned, that we are our hope actually to implement our action plans, and also it's very important to cooperate with our neighborhood countries to have regional projects. Also, it's a big chance, and also to get chances for further finance opportunities, because it is not an easy. One hand cannot clap, as we said. So therefore, I think the cooperation through regional projects or even bilateral projects with such kind of interests, if there is the same interest for the same country. I mean, for example, our neighbor in Jordan, most of the climate problems actually we are affected in the same way. Rather that, of course, we are not talking about occupation now. I'm talking naturally about natural climate change. So, for example, to have this kind of projects and kind of cooperation, really it can help, and also to push to find sources to implement these adaptation plans. And of course, we are wishing that Islamic Development Bank already they implement and they support a lot of projects in Palestine.
Inshallah.
But we hope to support more. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I will now give the opportunity to the floor. I was made aware that Dr. Dukairi is with us from AOAD. Okay, he's not. Right. So if anyone had any questions or comments or remarks, we'd love to have that. I think I can see the lady in the middle and then the gentleman in the back. Yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Katja Eisbrenner. I'm from Guidehouse, and thanks a lot for the very insightful things. I do think climate finance is very important. I just wanted to bring one of the areas which I think is still a little bit missing here, and that's the topic of cooling, actually, especially with natural refrigerants and technologies that we're putting forward. We're cooperating at the moment actually with Jordan and Lebanon, also Egypt and Turkey, and we have just had the first regional conference on sustainable cooling. And I just would be interested to hear from the panelists how that is received. I mean, we know it a little bit from Jordan, but I think that's also a great opportunity with you and ASQA and also ISDB to cooperate. So I'm happy to connect further and hear the remarks from the panelists. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm sure our esteemed panel would be able to do so. Are there any other comments or remarks from anyone else that we can take right now before we go back? Okay. I suppose we'll address this one to also to Engineer Bilal from Jordan. We're talking about, we're hearing directly from the crowd in the sense that there are opportunities to collaborate, and how would you respond to some of those opportunities? What's the best way to get in touch, and how do you progress from there as such?
May you kindly just repeat the last part of your question?
Sure.
'Cause
If you
I
don't
didn't
mind, if you
hear
can
so
you just
well.
repeat?
Sorry.
And I apologize for the noise situation. We're not able
Yeah,
to.
thanks.
Well,
No, thanks a lot. We are already cooperating with
You're
Jordan.
already cooperating with Jordan.
Yes,
And you're from
exactly.
Guidehouse, if
I'm
I-
from Guidehouse, and we're
Yes.
running the Cooler program. So, and it's about natural refrigerants and how we can also on the technology shift, because in the cooling sector, and I think
Right.
we can all agree that the region needs
Right.
or has a heat issue where cooling could be a solution. We need to ensure that the right technologies are there, and that we also maybe leapfrog some of the existing air conditioning technologies.
Thank
And
you.
that's an interesting topic.
Well, thank you so much. Well, I've heard a part of it, but the other part I didn't. Sorry, and thank you and that for clearing. As been said by the lady, we are within this project, this initiative, not only now within the Cool Up, but also since there's someone's
Yeah.
screaming. So, since Jordan been engaging with the Protocol of Montreal for CHCs, so we no, it's sorry.
We'll try our best.
No, it's all right. Well, Jordan been with the Montreal Protocol for the ozone layer, and we've been trying to change even whatever was the gases used in the cooling systems. Lastly, we've made before 2 years we made refrigerators working on CO2. We did also phase out most of the harming gases from the market itself, and we do not import anything within that. We are trying now also to enhance and enforce the green building codes and make some ESCOs in the country so that we create new jobs and we create some insulation for the houses. At the same time, we are doing our part for the cooling system. So we are insulating buildings and houses in order not to to reduce the need for either heating or cooling at summer or heating at winter. At the same time, we are trying to get the most efficient cooling devices within the consumption of the energy itself. Depending on that, we're as Jordan reached 29% of our electricity from renewables, we are at the same time trying to bring much more investment at the renewables, which would cover these issues. But what been mentioned is for the energy efficiency projects at the cooling system, which will give us a good amount of reduction of households, refrigerators at malls and grocery stores, also at the same time in factories and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, Dr. Rola? Yeah.
I just will take your offer. ASQA is located in Lebanon, its headquarters, and electricity and diesel is a big issue and challenge in Lebanon. So maybe Carol is here, our cluster leader on climate change and natural resource sustainability. Maybe we'll work out, and maybe it could be Lebanon also another pilot on the cooling system. And we'll reach out to this, because this could be a good solution also for the Lebanese people in terms of optimization on resources and sustainability and green sustainability as we move forward. So we'll look forward to engage further on the discussion on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I suppose on that very optimistic partnership oriented note, that makes a very good conclusion to our very illustrious panel. And thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to actually moderate in the first gender positive panel that I've actually been part of, to be honored to be participating in. And really we really appreciate all the insights that you've all have shared. And at the Islamic Development Bank and at ESCOA, thank you all very much for coming in. And thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your time, Engineer Bilal, May, and of course, our co-host, Dr. Rola Dashti. Maybe we can have a quick photographs right now on the panel. But before we do that, please just join me in giving a round of applause to the panel.